What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Hangout. I'm BJ Kicks. I buy comics, I read them, and I review them, all for your viewing pleasure. And again, this is the Hangout. It's the show that we do every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. Am I always right on time like this? Not always, but it's fun either way. My man Tim Sheeran's here in the chat. Mary's here, so we got people here waiting. We got a special guest tonight. So on the Hangout, I'm either talking comics with you or I'm talking comics with a special guest. And tonight we've got a very special guest. This is the writer of Here Comes Calico. Now, you guys may remember I did a spotlight or a review on Here Comes Calico #1 a little bit over a year ago. And now we're up to issue 5. So Mr. H.H. German is here to talk about his journey in comics and, of course, the Kickstarter for issue #5 that is already fully funded with just 8 days to go. So that's super exciting. So join me in welcoming Mr. H.H. German to the Hangout. What's up, Double H?
Doing well. How you doing? Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem, man. Thanks for coming on. I'm doing well also. It's been a crazy day or crazy week, but I love Thursday nights. I love doing these streams on Friday Eve. I think it sets the tone for a good weekend.
You got it. That's the way to do it. Smart man. Smart brother.
Thanks. We've got some applause here from the chat. Mary's clapping for you. Calvin Kemp says, hey, BJ, what's up, Calvin? How are you? Now, the Hangout is a show that we do every week, and it is brought to you by our channel sponsor, Organic Price Books. Now, if you're not familiar, Organic Price Books, they are an online retailer that specializes in collected editions. So if you're looking for the omnibus, like I've got all around me, the trade paperbacks, oversized hardcovers, go to organicpricebooks.com and you can save on every order using the code BJKicks at checkout. If you've got like a massive order, you're ordering 3 or more books, then you can use the code BJKicks, ship it together, and that'll save you 5% on your order. But as always, huge thanks to JP and the folks at Organic Price Books for sponsoring the video. Now, if you are here watching live, I would love to know if you've already picked up your books this week. What are you excited about? What did you read? What's been your favorite so far? Calvin says, I'm good, new to your show. Thank you for stopping in, man. It's always cool to get new viewers. That means we're doing something right, hopefully. Hopefully you stay. And Tim Sheeran says, hey, Mr. German.
What's up? How you doing, baby?
So I picked up my books for the week. And it's funny, I'm like surrounded by comics in here. I'm quickly coming to a point where it's like, all right, I got to cut something down. We had a second baby last year, and the older she gets, it feels like the less time I have to actually read all these comics. So they just kind of stack up around me. Luckily, Marvel does those digital redeem codes, so I can redeem it. And then now I've got a digital copy and it's on my iPad, so I can kind of catch up that way. But it's very quickly becoming overwhelming. But I want to know, Double H is here. What got you into comics?
Well, I'm Dominican American. I was born and partly raised in the Bronx in an Italian neighborhood. And for me, English is my third language. Okay. So I was sort of thrust into a neighborhood of people that weren't, my own. And what that means is that in New York, at least, and certainly in the Bronx, that you got to figure out a way to, to survive at a very young age. And I didn't have any younger brothers or any brothers at the time. I was the older brother. And eventually my other brothers came. The point being that I grew up in a very pugilistically spicy area. I fought every single day, multiple times against multiple people. And Sesame Street and comic books. Those were the 2 things that I could count on to finally learn the language with some level of mastery. So that's how I got into comics.
Got you. Yeah, man. So a lot of my family's from Queens, New York.
Okay.
I've been to the Bronx once that I know of. We went to the Bronx Zoo once, and that was cool. Yeah. But no, it's definitely, it goes down in the boogie down, as they call it.
The boogie down, baby. You got to be, got to guard your grill in the boogie down nonstop. And
Right.
that's how I was raised. So
It's funny because, like, in Jamaica, Queens, right, it gets that name because there's so many West Indian immigrants, right? And so you might hear Haitian going up and down the street,
right,
um, and then a lot of patois. But for the most part, everyone in Queens spoke English.
right,
Um, but I can imagine how it is, like, just being in a neighborhood with so many Latino immigrants, and there's different languages. How So you said you learned mostly through like comics and Sesame Street,
right,
which I know Jim Lee says that he learned English the same way.
right. So this goes into a little bit of a little story, but Klaus Jansen's actually an early guiding force of this project.
Hmm.
He and I actually have a very similar situation. He immigrated from Germany.
Hmm.
His family did. He grew up, in New York City as well, like I did. And comic books were also seminal to his American story.
Hmm.
In my case, similar to him, I grew up in a neighborhood not with Latinos. We
Oh,
didn't have one Latino family in my neighborhood. It was all Italians, and we had some Irish.
gotcha.
So there was a lot. It was like oil and war. There was a lot of fighting
Hmm.
early on. So for me, my second language is Italian because it was much similar to Spanish.
Hmm.
So it was a bumpy ride, my friend. I got to fight a lot, and I got to understand from a very early age that concept of conflict. Good
Yeah.
versus evil, and challenges that you have to overcome with some level of inspiration. Sometimes you're stacked literally at the bottom of something, and you
Right.
have to climb yourself out of it. And it's not just your physical; it's your mental, it's your
Hmm.
charisma, it's your humor. There's a lot of things that you have to use in these streets to survive and to get out. And what happens is, if you have any level of creativity, as I did, I grew up drawing and painting and whatnot, and of course I went to art school.
Hmm.
um you you start to put images to the things that are happening to you.
Hmm.
Okay, and if you can orate and you could tell a story and craft prose, then listen, that's a very nice combination for comics, and that's exactly what I was able to do. To come full circle, I was training for a fight
Hmm.
in I'm a former boxer, by the way. I was
Gotcha.
training for a fight in 2020, right before the pandemic hit. I was 3 months into my training, which really meant that I was ready for fighting.
Hmm.
The weigh-ins were a week away, and I was right on my weight, which is just under 180 pounds, and light heavyweight. And every single show called me up. Listen, the Masters tournament's canceled. There's no fights this year.
Oh
Again, this is 2020. And I was devastated. I was working really hard, and the person I was dating got a book deal from a very big publisher.
man.
And she said, "HH, why don't you take that idea off the shelf that novel?"
Hmm.
And that was a novel that I eventually started working on as an outline, turned into eventually a comic book, which we know now is Here Comes Calico.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. So taking it back to your influences, right? Obviously comics were a refuge for you,
Right.
but like which heroes did you gravitate to?
Unequivocally, my favorite of all was Spider-Man. For lots of reasons. He was, from Queens, all right,
Hmm.
a guy who really had a lot stacked up against him, and I totally identified with him. He's from the urban streets, a hard situation, and every single day they threw something difficult at the poor guy, and somehow he managed to overcome. So I could totally identify with that. Absolutely.
Nice. Yeah. My favorite was always Batman. I didn't know like I grew up with with the cartoons first. That's how I was introduced to all the superheroes. And then when I
Right.
would go, I'd stay with my grandmother for the summer in Queens, and
Nice.
one of my uncle's friends, I don't know if he worked at a comic shop or if he was just like a huge nerd, but he would just bring like these Rite Aid bags full of comics. And that would be like our summer entertainment. Like my cousins and I would just fight over which ones we wanted.
Right.
And at the time, I used to draw all the time. And so I would just grab whatever book looked coolest so I
Right.
could try to copy whatever,
Right.
into my art books. Um,
Right.
I didn't actually read the comics back then. It was just, oh, that looks dope. Let me draw this. And it's funny, going back to North Carolina, I just thought comics were only a thing in New York. I didn't even know they had them until years later. And now here I am making up for lost time.
Hey,
Um,
listen, you come full circle, baby. You can go far away from Queens, but that it's gonna get you. And
Right.
that's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing when you grow up surrounded by imagery that's powerful, that's
Mhm.
inspirational. As a kid, you don't really see it. It's just your Tuesday or your
Right.
Wednesday. But what's happening is you're forming a vernacular for what's good and evil.
Mhm.
B, what is powerful, striking, that taps into your inner psyche, your emotion, right? And
Right.
you're also getting a day-to-day. I've said this before somewhere else. Comic books are really the first self-help books that we have as kids,
Yeah.
growing up, because there's so many things that we learn that, again, we at the time we don't understand that we're learning them, you see, but the
Right.
message is definitely coming through. So it's pretty powerful, man.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like those themes of like perseverance, determination, right? Those are
Right.
things that Spider-Man and Batman both have in common, right? Those
Right.
that's what I pick up when I'm reading both of those titles. It's just like, all right, he went through this. This was really difficult. How's he going to get out of it, right?
Exactly.
And it's even better when they're like narrating in their head, like, oh, how am I going to get out of this? All right, let me think of something real quick. Like I love those types of stories.
Right. Batman was very methodical. He used a similar principle to Sherlock Holmes in that obviously he's a detective, the
Hmm.
greatest detective, Batman being. And that's the principle of deduction.
Hmm.
Deduction is something, it's like the artist that starts with a body of clay, the sculptor. And then
Right.
he starts, we removing until, he gets the image that he or she's looking for. And
Mm,
that's what deduction is. That's why Batman is such a compelling character. Aside from the fact that he is this mysterious, dark character.
mm.
He's got this incredible process that's intellectual as it is physical, and it's so compelling. He's also one of my favorites as well.
Nice. Nice. Now, let's see. We've got Truth and Faith here from Compton, California. Says he drew. He's Mexican, El Salvador, Panama, Samoan, Black, and Filipino. He says he also drew. Said he set him free,
That's beautiful.
um, and it helped him out being in Compton. In the
Mhm.
hood. You
Oh
know.
yeah, oh yeah, Compton. We know that. Bronx, Compton. These are areas that are renowned. I don't care where you are in the world.
Yeah.
People know what Compton is. People know what the Bronx is. People know what
Right.
Queens is. So
Right. Absolutely. Um, my man C Rooks here. He's from the UK. He says, "I love how comics help people in different ways.
right,
They got me through my worst."
right. Big thing. That's a big thing, man. Listen, it taps into your psyche, and again, as a child, as a young person, you don't even understand what's happening
Mm,
because your brain is doing its thing, but you're living life day to day, and
right.
whatever is around you forms you. Okay, we are very influential
Mm,
as people. We're adaptable. The human species is an incredible thing. It adapts to things in its environment. You bring up Compton, you bring up UK, wherever you are. There are things that help you through difficult challenges in your life.
mm,
And when you have a book that's easy to port, you roll it up, you put it in the back of your back pocket, and you could reference it for so many different things. I certainly did as a kid, man. I learned things in fights.
yeah.
I first started, like many fighters, in New York as a street fighter, right?
Hmm.
So I didn't have a boxing gym. It wasn't
Mm,
until later that somebody said, "Hey, man, you got to take that into a boxing gym because it's already getting crazy." But
right.
um, I learned weaving
Hmm.
from Spider-Man because he was very. If you notice the way Spider-Man fought, he was very compact.
Yeah.
His limbs weren't really out there, only except when he was navigating through the streets
Right.
uh, above. But when he actually fought, he was pretty tight. He was nice,
Hmm.
like wound up almost. And I learned so many, like, oh, I can move my body this way, and the punch is going that way. Of course, in comics, everything's exaggerated.
Right.
So,
Right.
so you learn how to pivot, and just
Yeah.
by watching these things, you're surrounded by them.
Hmm.
And I'm telling you, I learned how to weave my body in certain ways in the street just from reading comics. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Um,
man.
my man Skips here. He says, just showing love real quick. He's at work. He says, shout out to Queens and the Bronx from Northern
Yes,
California.
indeed. Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Thank you. Much respect to you.
Now, Double H, so you've got a very interesting journey, right? You're a pugilist, you're a novelist, and now a comic writer. How do you how do you kind of how do you go from the pugilist like world and then say, oh, you know what, I'll put this down for a second and just go back to writing.
Right. It's creativity. So I did go to art school. So I graduated from the School of Visual Arts.
Okay.
And when I started the project, now mind you, my degree is in advertising. Okay. So I do have a design background similar to a la McFarlane. McFarlane's got a graphic design degree. So the next subset of advertising, graphic design. So it's really the visual part of advertising, right? So who's, by the way, McFarlane, you know, I'm probably the biggest fan. I love his work.
Yeah.
But basically when it struck, I went back home, and that home is, you know, my alma mater, School of Visual Arts. When I knew that this was going to be a comic book, the first thing I did was pick up the phone, call the illustration department, speak to, you know, whoever was the head there at that time, 2 years ago. And I said, listen, you know, I'm looking for a young talent that's coming out. You know, I'm not rich. I got a few bucks. This way we can get something going, and we could throw some money in the kid's pocket and help me out with this idea. And as I kept scrolling down on the page on the website, I saw a name which is infamous. You know, I mean, this man's a legend, and that's Klaus Janson. Klaus Janson, of course, for your audience, I'm sure all you know him, but, you know, Klaus Janson is the long-term partner, you know, Frank Miller. You know, he's just Daredevil, you know, Born Again. I mean, Dark Knight series. I mean, these are legendary comic books. And Klaus Janson was right there. And considered one of the best, if not the best, inker in comic book history.
Yeah.
So he's somebody whose name I saw, and I reached out to him, and he was kind enough to eventually get back to me. And he helped. He gave me very, very substantive help early on. This wasn't like a few tips. This was him getting on the phone with me on calls multiple times for 30 minutes, an hour, etc., asking me to get back to him, reviewing my information. The first time I'm the first artist, BJ, on everything. Okay, so I'm the first guy who drew the Calico. Right, I'm the first guy who drew the character who we'll talk about in a little bit here.
Okay.
But all these guys that are crazy, you know, these characters, I drew them first. And if you heard what Klaus Janson told me when I first gave him the Calico, you'd laugh, man, because he was just like, dude, get back there and draw this guy again. All right? you got some more work to do, buddy. So, and I came back to him twice, you know, and I told him, listen, thank you, because I need my ass kicked. I don't want you to be all nice to me here. So I got some sun here in the back. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's all good. And he was just gracious just because you guys are both alums of the same school?
Right. He was on the faculty, which I didn't know. And and he said, that's why I told him, listen, you got to come at me as if I was one of your students. And he didn't hold back. He said, HH, you got to go back, and here's what you got to do. Focus on this, focus on that. And I'm thankful that he did. So, you know, I still keep drawing all the characters, but I make sure that I get some buy-in. So
that is awesome. That's awesome. What's funny is, you know, it really does show. Like, so I've been covering a lot of indie comics here, especially lately. And one of the biggest differences between, you know, what you'll see on Kickstarter and what you'll see on stands at a comic shop is the quality of the art.
Right.
And I mean, it makes sense, right? If you're working for Marvel or DC, you're likely full time. So you've got a full day to put into a page. Whereas if you're doing this kind of in your spare time, you know, the work gets what it gets. But when I opened up Here Comes Calico #1, which I don't have in front of me, but I do have issue 3 right here.
Right.
It's the first thing that stands out is the art. Like, even the covers. These covers are just awesome.
Yep.
But this, is it Garbiano? Is how you say it?
Yeah, it's Garnabiel. I was speaking to him today. He's actually working on issue 6 right now, and that man brings it. Okay, and I told him, listen, buddy, if you want to work on this comic book, as I tell everybody, you better bring your big A guns. You know,
right?
We don't half step. Listen to the Big Daddy Kane, baby. I came up in the 80s and 90s, so there's no half stepping in this comic book. Okay,
right. And so, but I mean, it really does show, like, the art in this book, and I talked about it in my review of issue #1. Like, it's right up there. It's right up there with a lot of the stuff you'll see coming out of Marvel, DC, or Image, and the quality is there.
Right.
So let's talk about Here Comes Calico.
Sure.
Right. So, your your brother, or Heck, he reached out to me and was
Right.
like,
Yeah.
"Hey, we want you to review this book." Like I
Right.
said, about a year ago. And what's crazy is I only had maybe 200 subscribers at the time. I don't know how he even knew who I was.
Right.
But so he sends me the book and I read it. I'm like, yo, like, because when I'm looking at the description, it's just like, okay, this is guys fighting for animal rights. I just had, whatever preconceived notion,
Right.
like, all right, well, we'll see how it goes, right?
Right.
And by the time I got to the end of issue 1, I was like, yo, this dude is no joke. Like, what is happening? Were you planning for that sort of reception?
Yeah, I knew it was going to be crazy. Listen, I'm gonna tell you something, without trying to sound braggadocious, but
Mhm,
I grew up really hard. We have a saying in the street: being hard and soft.
mhm,
There's some hard-ish that went down where I grew up. Even the high school I went to was an all-boys high school.
mhm.
Okay, and it was like prison. It
Yeah.
was literally like Oz. I don't know if you guys know that show Oz and HBO.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
That was my high school. Every single day we had dudes that were pretty hardcore. We were kicking dudes in the chest through windows. I'm not kidding you.
Wow.
And people, it was just as I don't want to say segregated, but because we had our groups.
Mhm,
And my group had an Italian kid, had a Puerto Rican kid. But everybody fought every single day, and it was crazy. Imagine priests, and it was a religious school.
mhm,
There were chairs. I'm talking about these heavy 80-pound cast iron stools were
mhm.
being thrown. People were getting, priests were getting their heads split. People were going through windows. There was fights every single day. Rings, alarms, police. When you grow up that way and somehow get a really good education, which I did, I was incredibly gracious
Mm.
and thankful to my parents. They put me in even though it sounds violent, it was actually a good school. It's just the kids were crazy. And
Right.
my class was nuts. We had kids that were, I don't want to call them, I mean, I guess they were racist, but it wasn't even that. It was just they hung out with their own cliques.
Yeah.
You see, so you had kids, where I grew up. I told you I grew up in an Italian neighborhood.
Mhm.
Let's just say in my neighborhood there was no crime,
Mm.
okay, to speak of and to
Mhm.
see, because everything was clean and organized. Let's just keep it at that. Okay.
Okay.
So if you know The Sopranos, you know what I'm talking about. So
Right.
you had all sorts of different groups there. And when you see teeth flying out of people's mouths every day, principal coming down. It was like, if you ever see that movie Lean on Me with,
Mhm.
Morgan Freeman,
Right.
like that, but in a mixed environment,
Yeah.
with a lot of different, you had Irish, you had Italian, you had Jamaican kids, you had, it wasn't black. It was groups of kids from
Yeah.
different countries. And so you had to negotiate, you had to do your thing. So the essence of how I grew up was violence. It was
Gotcha.
understanding good versus evil. And I
Mhm.
think that's what's missing, BJ, in what today's comics. Today you got people in major comics, big two, sitting around having donuts, drinking coffee, doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
My comic books start with people going through windows. Okay, your
Right.
truck is going right into your living room, and your mom's going to get her arms cut off. Something crazy,
Right.
So
Right.
that's what's going down. And here comes Cal.
Yeah. Here comes Calico's brutal. So the basic premise of the book, the and gosh, I'm forgetting our main character's name.
Hector.
Um, Hector.
Yes.
Gotcha. So Hector's a boxer.
Right.
He's a fighter. But in the first issue, he talks a lot about how he just doesn't like bullies. There's a little bit of a
Right.
flashback to when he's a kid, a situation where he's bullied, and it's like, all
Right.
right, now I'm not taking this anymore, right?
Right.
And so his whole thing is like, look, I'm fighting for people who can't fight for themselves, right?
Exactly.
And so in this, situation, right, the most vulnerable people are actually not people; they're animals, right?
Right.
And so Hector really takes an issue with you if you're like mistreating animals. And that could be something as simple as like, I don't know, leaving your dog in a hot car, all the way up to like poaching and dog fighting. Like, oh, no
Right.
matter what type of cruelty to animals
Right.
you participate in,
Right.
Calico's coming for you. He's
That's
coming
exactly
for you.
right. Right.
Um,
He brings it.
Absolutely. And so the first issue, like I said, it kind of took me by surprise. Like you can see like where it's going. By the time the issue ends, it's like, yo, this is brutal.
Right. Yeah.
And so at the time, like I hadn't even read a Punisher comic at the time when I first read a Calico.
Wow.
Now that I have read some, I'm like, okay, that's who this guy is.
Yeah. You came in cold, brother. You came in cold. Okay.
Right. Second Street Marvel said, here comes Calico's legit. He says, you can't even say anything mean to other kids in school these days. My daughter told a kid she thought his art was ugly after he asked. The kid broke down into tears. One parent-teacher conference day.
No.
Oh, man. Second Street Marvel says, I get in trouble in school these days. We solve problems in school with our fists.
That's right. That's exactly right. And shout out Second Street. Thank you for your support as well, man. You know, you guys and people like BJ Kicks are really helping us lay down the foundation to, you know, start communicating this comic book to the audience that it deserves, which is people like you guys in the audience right here. Keep it real, man. You know, we don't got any fairy tale tales, you know. Right.
And Tim Sheeran says it right here. He says Calico reminds me of Punisher.
Right.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And BJ, that's what it is. You know, I say you came in cold, and I only say that because, you know, not having read the Punisher and first starting with Calico, that's a leap. That's like, you know, turning that oven to 500 first.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So, but yeah, that's what it is. And to your audience, the last couple of comments, and I say this to people who we now see face to face pretty much every weekend at the shows that we do. We're not going to sugarcoat a very serious topic. I'm a Gen Xer. Okay. That means I'm in my 40s. Excuse me. What that means is that everything was sugar-coated for me. Okay. If there was a message about drugs, okay, what was going to happen was somebody was going to crack 2 eggs in a frying pan, okay, and let them sizzle and say, hey, this is your brain. You know, this is your brain on drugs and stuff like that.
Right.
Today, you do that today to the youth, and they'll look at you, and they, you know, you're insulting them, you know, because these kids are smart and they understand the consequences of things and how serious these things are. And that's why we did the comic book, how we did it. We're not going to continue to insult the population to a very serious topic that is animal abuse. Okay, every single day, animals all across the world, in America, to a very serious topic that is animal abuse. Okay? Every single being abused. So we're not going to have. We're going to respond to a very serious topic by showing what actually happens. We're not going to sugarcoat it just because the audience is too timid to receive actual visuals. And that's why we've been called BJ groundbreaking. We've been called the pioneering comic book series because we're the only ones that show you, hey, this is what happens when you abuse an animal. These are the repercussions, okay? And we respond to that truth and accuracy with an anti-hero who goes above and beyond to bring justice to those animals.
Right. Absolutely. So with animal rights, was that a cause that had always been important to you?
Right, it was, and I identified personally a lot with animals. I told you before that, you know, I was an only child for a little while until my younger brothers came. So I have someone older helping me out. You know, when you're an animal, you're born in this world. It's not an easy thing. You're on your own in some cases, you know, unless you have a mammalian mom who keeps you close and, you know, gives you some guidance early on. But even for her, it's going to be difficult because in some species, the male, you know, eats the offspring. So you really have to, you know, point is you're fighting, and you read issue 1, and, you know, I love this show, okay, BJ Kicks, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because you have a pure reception of comics. Okay, when you read that issue, it was apparent to us at Sigma Comics that you saw that with purity what was happening in that comic book. You're an actual comic book reader, okay, undeterred by anything other than wanting a good story.
Right.
Knowing this, page 2 and 3 of that first issue, the man is telling you that he sees everything in as a war, as a fight. When you kiss somebody, and this is true, this is a scientific fact. BJ, when you kiss somebody, even when you're trying to love somebody, there's a war going on, an actual war between bacteria, you know, from different individuals' DNA. They're killing each other. That's literally what's happening. Right. Everything in life is a damn war. It's violent. We live in a violent reality. So here's a man who thinks scientifically about everything. Okay, this is to say that there's little emotion in this man. He
Right.
sees what's happening and he knows what he has to do. And this MFR is hardcore.
Right. Yeah. No, he's he's hard, man.
His superpower. A lot of people tell, well, what's Hector's superpower here? His superpower is his state of mind. Okay.
Right.
Lethal Weapon. Ice-T, for all you old hip hop lovers out there. Ice-T had a song called Lethal Weapon. Lethal Weapon. My mind is a lethal weapon. And that's his weapon. His mind is hard. He's a hard dude, and he's got an incredible suit that allows him to do pretty amazing things. But it's taken him some time to hone those skills, because as you saw in issue 4, he's been at this for a little while now. So
right. But yeah, man, it's wild. Like, the book is really good, right? So what I love about it is it is fairly episodic, right? There's a through line, of course. It's an 8-issue series, and so each issue is definitely building on the last. But it's almost like a TV show, in that you can kind of read any issue and still enjoy it, right? Because you've got the sort of villain of the week while you're building up toward this larger threat. And so much of the entertainment, I've got to say, is like just seeing how these people get what's coming to them. Like, what is he gonna do? It's almost like I've read like some old Spectre books, right? It's kind of like that. Like, how's he gonna flip whatever they're doing to these animals onto them?
Right.
In issue 3, there's a scene where he just like walks straight in and like just slices a dude's leg off, and it's like, oh, you have information here. Let me stop the bleeding long enough for you to give me this information. Like, it's like, yo, what? It was wild.
Right.
And then the next thing, he's like, I'm back in a boxing gym like it's a normal day. Like, all right, cool. Work it out. That was great.
Right. It's a trip, man. Listen, it's an entertainment. No one has ever put down this comic book and said, oh, well, that was a boring, 20 minutes. It's always like, whoa.
Right. It's a ride. So I'm gonna do this. Let me share my screen real quick, because we're here, obviously to kind of catch up. I hadn't talked to Double H before. And so this has been fun. But we're here to talk about Here Comes Calico number 5. So one thing we haven't touched on yet is that with each issue of Here Comes Calico, you're bringing attention or awareness to a different animal rights group.
Right.
And so, like, issue 3, for example, gives a shout out to the abandoned ones. Right. And TAO Animal Rescue.com. And then also the Animal Welfare Institute in the back. So 2 different organizations get a spotlight in each issue.
Right.
Now, with that, how closely are you working with these organizations, or is it just, hey, let's show them some love in these issues?
Right, and that's what it is. So due to the content, obviously we're not allowed to have that close a relationship, and how we work it, how we're actually able to work it, is by us sponsoring them, right? Gotcha. By us being the ones that are giving them, the accolades and introducing them to our ever-growing audience, because every single weekend we're at a different city building the list. And, with Kickstarter, just to give you guys a little perspective, that's definitely a very poor indicator of what we actually sell. Every given weekend we actually sell out between 250 and 300 sets of comics.
Wow.
Usually we go there with issue 1 and 2. So, that means we're selling about between 700 and 800 comics, depending on how much we sell. And that's only in a couple of days, 2-3 days. And that's even, conservative. So because the way Kickstarter works for us, we only get the help of Kickstarter on the first day. So you could actually, if you had access to our dashboard, you could see that a good portion of our growth is on the first and second day, and that's helping. Right. Kickstarter helping us. The reason we're continuing to build our list is precisely because of that. Because after that second day, it's like nothing. It's us doing the marketing, getting people there. So we're building that list. We're having a little bit of an obstacle due to the just the realities of today. Email, a lot of emails, unfortunately. Even if you could have a clean IP, the way it works is a lot of them go into your spam folder or promotions folder, and a few of them actually get into the inbox. So if we actually had a really good delivery system, we are working on that to get better open rates, we would hit our goal in like 2 days. I'm not even kidding with the amount of customers we have. So
yeah, that when I'm not talking comics on the internet, that's what I do in my real life as well, as digital marketing. And you're right, email marketing. It used to be the saying was that for every $1 you put into email marketing, you get 44 in return, right? And you know, it's still like kind of the number one direct to fan sort of medium. But you're right, it's harder and harder. And between email marketing and then social media marketing, these tech companies are making it harder for companies like ours to reach people, because it's like, look, like, basically everything is spam is how they look at it, you know? Like, if you got 1 million emails a day, but you got one email from your grandma, that's the important email. And they're trying to make it sure that you get grandma's email.
Right.
But yeah, so.
And here's the reality, and you know it very well, BJ, because this is your work. Small business drives the country. You know, it has for the past 40, 50 years. It's been small business. The days of the IBMs and these companies that are driving anything. That's just not there. It's the small businesses that are driving everything, like on the ground, on the street. And I can tell you that there is no better list qualified than ours, because these are people who have already purchased something. And they're demanding that we give them, and what they're purchasing is issues 1 and 2. We only show up with 1 and 2, issues 1 and 2. We do that intentionally so that then they can go and go to the website or the Kickstarter and get what we call the convention bundle, which is issues 3 to 5. See?
Got you.
So these are people that are waiting for this email. And in some cases, we're getting emails saying, hey, where's the email that you said you were going to send me? Well, the constant contact spam thing, didn't get you. So they're telling us that, oh, this is great. A 20% deliverability is awesome. Yeah. I said, well, listen, man, I'm not talking about a general list. I'm talking about a very vetted list. These are people who have purchased from us and just gave us their emails. So it should be 90 or above. That's the way it should be. Anyway, don't get me started on that.
Absolutely. So what I'm looking at here, what we've got on the screen here, is the Kickstarter campaign for issue 5. Now, don't worry if you're just now hearing about Here Comes Calico. Maybe you weren't a subscriber back when I did that first video when I had 200 subscribers. No worries, because you can actually get all 5 issues of Calico if you just want digital for as little as $12, right? Now, if you decide you want to get all 5 physically, you can get readers' copies, and all it takes is a $20 pledge to get all 5 issues. If you want to step up just a little bit and get a collector's copy, and what that means is it comes in a bag and board, and it's shipped in a little bit more of a secure package, so it's going to arrive to you in much better condition. You pay just $10 more for all 5 issues in a collector condition. So,
right.
I love that.
Yep. It's a great deal. That's one of the ways we're able to really compete very successfully.
Right. And so now tell me about the Jiggler.
The Jiggler, baby. Man, let me tell you something. I told you before, I'm the guy who draws all the characters first. When I drew that character, I just couldn't stop, man. I couldn't stop laughing. And then I sent it over to Garnabiel. And he was like, holy crap, he couldn't, he was foaming at the mouth for this guy. He was like, I can't wait to draw him, and he came back to me with that first sketch. I said, holy cow, man, this guy. I mean, when that M134 minigun starts moving, that fast starts jiggling. Bodies hit the deck, baby.
Right. That is great. So now and I guess it wouldn't be good to spoil the story. Is the Jiggler working with Hector?
Here's what I can tell you. The Jiggler is an escapee from a mental institution. Okay. He's a well-known mentally ill criminal. Okay. And his MO is he's always getting his hands on the minigun. Okay. And the first thing, it's like when you get out of prison, you're a criminal. It's like you got your certain thing that you do. Well, his is he gets his hand on the minigun. And once he gets on there, he's got to put out, in his mind, he's got to put out some fires in the streets of New York City. So he does his thing, and it's just unfortunate for Hector that it's taking place a little bit too close to home for him, for his taste. So that's we're gonna get a run in here. So
Gotcha. So I'm gonna do this. Give me a second. I'm gonna get this link on the screen so that everybody knows where they can go to back this.
As you're doing this, let me just say something to your audience, guys. Everybody who's watching this, man, guys and gals, this really is a wonderful, wonderful project. All of us do this with love, as you could see. BJ said, with these covers, the art, the story, and the cause. Those three things come together to form Voltron into a package that is genuinely, absolutely created from the heart. We absolutely love animals here. If you love animals, this is a great thing to support and to give as a gift. As long as you or the recipient is over 17 years old, because as BJ and I mentioned, you know, the Calico does not pull back. This is a very hardcore anti-hero for the times. You know, just like, you know, the Punisher brought it back in the 80s in New York City. This man is bringing it, you know, in the 2020s, but he's doing it for a completely different reason. That's because there's a lot of a-holes out there that decide it's a good idea to abuse animals. So listen, look within your heart. The worst case scenario is, you know, you lose a few bucks on a comic book that you might not like, which I don't think is going to happen, by the way. But if you do, it's going to a good cause, because, you know, every penny you give us goes to fighting animal abuse and our support for animal rights and all the organizations that we support that, by the way, are vetted to make sure that when you do buy our comics, that money's not going to operations. These are vetted charities and organizations. So when you do buy our comic books, you can absolutely be rest assured that their program to operations ratio is over 85%. So you're going to be doing a good thing when you buy Here Comes Calico.
Now, with creating a book like this, did you find any obstacles? Like I guess there's always obstacles when it comes to bringing anything to market. What would you say was the one that kind of surprised you?
Well, I guess our purity, because I'm not kidding you, the first week that we sent our marketing campaign, we decided, BJ, we weren't going to hold back. We were going to show, our marketing campaign was going to be videos, clips, I should say, of people, you know, initially, you know, trying to injure or attack an animal. So you would see a guy, like, you know, trying to hit a dog. You know, we'd edit it so it wasn't too graphic, but it was graphic enough for some people.
Right.
And we got flooded with, oh my God, you're showing animal abuse. How could you do this? Da, da, da. And my response initially was, listen, we're not going to sugarcoat, just like we do with our comics. We're not going to sugarcoat this for your sensitivity. This isn't your problem. It's the animal's problem. And there's people who need to see this so that they understand what's actually happening for this. So that was our first marketing campaign. So we got a lot of pushback from the audience. And then it was conveyed to us that some people actually get off on seeing these images. There are people out there they're a new level, BJ, of a-hole. Yeah. They enter into a demented level. And that's when we all sat down as a team. I said, you know what? They got a point. You know, the people who actually gonna, you know, get off on this. So, you know, we canned it. So that was our first big hurdle, was the marketing. And that actually cost us quite a bit, because we invested. Think about all we invested in trying to get, you know, us being excited about doing this, and finally not sugarcoating and not telling, you know, and telling the truth and not hiding things, only to get this wall of, you know, sensitivity. And listen, we heard the validity, and listen, we addressed it, and sure enough, we had a cannon. So that would be good.
Absolutely. Animal rights is a tough crowd, right? It's a sensitive topic, right? So many. I mean, I have a dog and a cat, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, so and I didn't have any pets back when Here Comes Calico came out, but you know, but it's like, if I see something like that, like, it definitely affects me a different way. Like, there was another series that came out, Stray Dogs, that came out through Image, I believe.
Yes, we heard of that.
And you know, and with that one, it was like none of the crazy stuff happens on screen, but it still hits you like in the feels. So I can imagine how, you know, just depending on the depiction, it can strike the wrong chord with some people. But again, if you like action And if you're someone who, you know, I mean, even if you don't feel any sort of way toward animals, like even if you're not like, you wouldn't consider yourself an animal lover, like this is just a straight up action book.
Right.
But I think if you are an animal lover, it's even sweeter to see that revenge that Calico is able to get, you know, for people that, like I said, can't fight for themselves.
Bingo. And, you know, just to give some color to this wonderful point you bring up, you know, Stray Dogs, which I also recommend. I would say that team is managed like, you know, if we're going to use football references, I forget the gentleman's name who was the coach of the Redskins back in the 80s, and they had a great team with Jerry Rice, you know, and Joe Montana, but they were also very strategic. Okay, that's not how Sigma Comics operates, and you already know what I'm getting at. This is a Vince Lombardi style, break your teeth. We're going to run that play over. If we have to run the same play over and over again, we're going to run it. And even if you know that we're coming to say we're going to come right down your throat, we're going to kick your teeth in and pull you right out the way. We're going to take you and we're going to bring you and your team into the end zone. That's how we're going to do this topic, because we're hardcore. This is straight up Tyson in the 80s. That's how we're doing this.
Right. So now we've got tiers for Here Comes Calico. Looks like all the way up to $4 or $40. You can get 10 copies on these books. That's basically, you get a reader copy and a collector copy of each issue. Oh snap! Is this you?
That's me. Back in the 90s when I was fighting, man. I was that picture was on pay-per-view. I was fighting MMA. And I was a boxer, but you know, this is part of the early wave of MMA. So that's H.H. Sherman right there at 21 years old, fighting for a world championship with a big ass mouthpiece.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So Sigma Comics, what you've got Calico, but you've got other characters as well, right?
Oh yeah, we got some characters in that roster.
So what's coming next? Because we got 8 issues coming of Here Comes Calico. We can't do that forever. I'm assuming you're not going to just close up shop after issue 8.
Not with the demand that we have, man. Like I said, you don't see it in the Kickstarter numbers, but in person, it's crazy. We sell out wherever we go, and like I said, we have limitations when it comes to this.
Yeah,
the ones I mentioned, but absolutely, due to the response that we are getting, thanks to people like you and others, giving us the platform to reach other people, we're definitely going to do a trade on this.
Okay.
And we're definitely going to be doing a volume 2. The idea was to have a volume 1 where that was a limited series. We're following very much the Punisher model of the 80s. Okay. You had the first limited series, and then you had the unlimited series. And that's exactly what we're doing. In fact, you know, speaking of the Punisher, Mike Barron is someone who is giving us some guidance with the character, because he had a character by the name of the Badger. And I came across that character and learned about him. And of course, knowing Mike Barron's great work on the Punisher, you know, I felt definitely the need that to have some of his expertise on the book as well, because that's exactly what we're trying to do, is create a character who goes in hard and doesn't stop at all, ever. So we got some good guidance. We're going to keep surrounding ourselves with people who know how to do comics. And like you said before, we're not going to half step. You know, if we're going to bring in art, it's going to be damn good. And it's going to be good stories, everything about it. Our comic book is really, really well priced. And we did that for a good reason, because we don't agree with the way comic books are priced these days. You know, our retail price is $2.99, which is pretty much unheard of these days. And I think it's only Todd McFarlane is the only one who does it with his Spawn. I guess the Image books do it.
Yeah. Well, no, it's really just Spawn, because the rest of the Image books are $3, $4, or $5 anyway.
Oh, okay. Well, listen, that you said it, man, and that's what it is. We don't agree with this. We think that you should get absolutely incredible art, powerful, gripping, you know, pull you out of your seat stories. Okay, a great cause that allows your money to actually do something good. You know, when you buy a comic book, you're just entertaining yourself. When you buy Here Comes Calico, man, you're entertaining yourself. You're helping animals. You know, you're helping these organizations that are actually vetted, that don't take your money and put it into somebody's salary or paying a phone, you know, the lights or something. This is going to gloves. It's going to boots, the caps, the flashlights. It's going for actual resources that will help animals. And I'm not kidding you guys. Listen, every single one of you who's watching this wonderful program, this wonderful show, look within your heart and get over there to Kickstarter right now, man, and type in "Here Comes Calico 5." You're gonna love this series. Listen to the brother. The brother knows good comics, you know, and he's not gonna let you down, brother.
Yeah, again, I mean, I keep saying it, but if you're a fan of action comics, and there's not a ton of action on the stands right now, so like when we see it, it's exciting. But if you're a fan of big action in your comics, this is definitely one that you got to have on your radar. And like I said, it's really just a bonus to me that, you know, it helps with animal rights and is bringing this awareness to this cause. Now, Kevin's got a question. He says, HH, how soon do you think the trade will be released?
Thank you for your question, Kevin, and thank you for supporting Here Comes Calico on the show, BJ Kicks. You know, we have a new artist. His name's Renato Pinto. So that's some news for you guys. And, you know, he's bringing it too. And he's working a lot quicker than Orbich. You know, Javier Orbich is another talented artist. He was great for us early on, but we want to turn that engine, rev that engine real good. And we brought in Renato Pinto. You guys could do a search on him. You can see his great artwork. You're going to start seeing him on those pages. So the answer to your question is, by the end of the year, we hope to finish out the rest of the series, because that's how quick Renato is. And listen, first thing next year, first quarter, we got that nice trade in your hands, man. That's the plan.
Awesome. Yeah, I love a good collected edition. So yeah, when the trade comes out, I'll definitely have that on my shelf. Let's see. Tim says, I'm not an animal lover, but I'm happy to help a good cause if needed. This definitely does. But like I said, I mean, it's not just a charity case. Like, this is a great comic. It's good quality. You can see, let me make myself a little bigger here. You can see like just the quality just on this cover alone, right? Again, this is not the typical stuff you see coming off of a Kickstarter. Let me make sure the page I turn to is safe. But, you know, we've got like, I mean, this is top quality artwork here.
Yeah.
Like, it's good stuff. I want to get like a good action shot of Hector here, but you know,
I know you're limited. I know it's hard.
Right. But there we go. Right.
Yeah,
so
that's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah.
So yeah, you can see in these pages. I mean, it looks better in person. But even if you just back it at the digital level, you got it right there on your screen. You can put on your iPad, right? Like, it's worth even just that.
Right. Right. Tim, thank you so much. I appreciate that. You know, we have a lot of people like yourselves that, you know, aren't necessarily animal lovers, but listen, they want to come in and help us get this done, you know, and that's what we're all about. We're a grassroots comic book. And like I said, you know, BJ Kicks, you know, BJ mentioned this before. He wasn't a big channel, and we're very thorough. We want to do this in a grassroots way. And we don't think about, well, he only has this much. No, he's putting out some good videos. He's got some good stuff on there. He's saying some good things. Clearly, this person knows comics. So we're gonna approach him, and that's exactly what this is. Grassroots on every level. So thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you, man. Second Street Marvel says, I love the old school newsprint. Reminds me of being a kid. Yeah, it's definitely like the comics I got when I was a kid. It's great. You get the smell. You get all of it.
You get all of it, man. You get that texture. It's that great feeling when you get, you know, these comic books have a nice heft to them. When you get that newsprint and you open it up, and like you said, you crack them open. It's like you smell that newsprint, and you can just, you know, sink back into your comfortable chair, your favorite beverage, and man, you're back, man. It's cool. Everything's cool. You could enjoy this with wonderful fascination, and everything is part and parcel to enhance the story. You know, you want to get into something, this is how you do it. You make sure that everything, even the slightest detail, is right for good comic book experience.
Right. Absolutely. So I'm just checking out the Sigma Comics website right now. Now you guys can, you know, after the Kickstarter is over, if you decide you just backed for issue 5, you want to go back and get the rest, you can do that. And you can see more about the causes that Sigma Comics supports at sigmacomics.com. But right now, we definitely want to call attention really to this Kickstarter, to this campaign. There's 8 days to go. Yes. Already 143 people have backed it. We're already over goal. So you don't have to worry about, pledging and then nothing happening.
Right.
This book is coming. It's coming.
It's coming. And right now, everybody who has backed and will back will receive a signed copy of issue 5 of Here Comes Calico. The next level, which is, it's definitely doable, is the poster. You guys are going to get an 11 by 17 Here Comes Calico City Cat poster. If you scroll all the way down, BJ, there's 2 options. In fact, they get 2 options of that poster.
Oh, got you.
City
Cat.
The City Cat, and there's another second City Cat 2. He's jumping, heads up poster, fight animal abuse.
I love that.
Yeah, man. So either way you want it, we got it for you. And it's a great thing to have, an 11 by 17 poster. And a lot of people like to do, the first one it's like classic Calico. That suit is just incredible. And I can't tell you the amount of people who've been coming. I didn't realize how big a thing cosplay was, BJ.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know either. Like I said, I'm relatively new to all this. I started reading comics heavily in 2019. Right. And but yeah, you go to conventions, and that's the other thing. The world kind of got shut down. So this summer is the first time people are starting to come out, and that's when now you're seeing it.
You're seeing it, and people are coming up to the booth and like, holy cow, I never see this. Who's this guy? I want to, and they just start taking like measuring things on how they're going to do it, like build a suit.
Right. But yeah, like just looking at Calico, looking at that suit, it's like, yo, this is dope. So, and we didn't even really get into the suit, but the suit is, I guess you could say like an Iron Man-esque suit, right? There's like just millions of dollars of technology that's gone into this suit. And so, it's not just that Calico is going after, these evildoers, right? These abusers, but there's people after Calico just for the technology in his suit. So there's action coming from multiple different directions across this series. It's
yes, that's an understatement. And all that does is enhance the drama. It enhances the drama. So it's very suspenseful. It's suspenseful. The tension and the suspense of this issue of this comic book series is up there.
Right.
At any given moment, you can get a pivotal thing happening, and that suit he's wearing is top-notch, state-of-the-art stuff.
Yeah, man. And so Kevin says the posters are dope.
Right.
And then Calvin says, does each issue talk about different animals?
So the answer is yes, but it's not necessarily by design. For us, the important thing is the topic of animal abuse. It just so happens that, for instance, issue 3 deals with dogs and the topic of illegal dog fighting, right? But listen, illegal cockfighting is just as bad, right? But through that, in that issue 3, dogs happen to be the representative, that species. So it's not necessarily that, we're focusing on a dog for that issue. It's just that we're bringing a topic to that issue.
Right.
So that's really what it is.
Yeah, I think the better way is it's each issue kind of focuses on a different form of animal abuse.
Exactly. Right. Absolutely. It's a different form. I mean, listen, issue 1 was all about trophy hunting, right? So it starts out, unfortunately, with dog. I don't want to, give it all out, but dog, unfortunately, is abused. And then we have the main topic being trophy hunting. Okay. And in issue 2, Calico says something very important. He says he has no problem with hunting. What his problem with is commercial hunting, okay, or any kind of hunting like trophy hunting, that you're doing it just to fulfill your own sense of either insecurity or your pockets, whatever that you don't need. Okay, hunting is essential to life. That's it. Listen, the only reason we're here as a species is to do the hunting. Right. All right. So it doesn't make sense to demean or attack something that is essential and intrinsic to the human story and fabric. What is absolutely valid to do is to attack things that are completely immoral and amoral. Right. Okay? There is no need to be killing an elephant, an extinct species, and in front of their babies. The little off. That's you're just a piece of what. Right. So you're going to get it. You're going to get bad things are going to happen to you. All right.
Mm.
You're the Calicos, you know, on the beat, you know. So 2 was the baby seal killers. Those guys that, you know, what they do is they take the hide and they use it for all sorts of things. They also take the oils that they use for perfumes and all these things. Okay. And then you have 3, I mentioned the illegal dog fighting. And 4, as you point out, BJ is, it's a jumping point. You know, it's where you can really get in and start the full arc of the story. So this is why we have individual stories. So anybody could come in the first half, anybody could enjoy the series, regardless of where they jump in. So that's it.
Nice. Let's see. C-Rook says, dogfighting is a bad issue around me. People have stolen dogs and then forced them to fight.
Right. It's terrible, man. And listen, it happens everywhere. It happens in the inner city. It happens in the rural areas. And what happens is that, you know, all animals are intrinsically predators and prey. Okay. And the human condition, for whatever reason, has decided, taken upon itself for its own amusement and entertainment. It's going to pivot and position these animals, some of which may be initially docile, and put them into a situation that immediately puts their health at risk. Immediately. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to segue just slightly, but it's the same kind of thing. Okay. I just mentioned before I was a boxer. Okay. I mean, technically I still am, because my USA boxing card is actually still active, but I'm not going to be fighting anymore. That said, a fighter from South Africa. Okay. He just died yesterday. Okay. And I saw his fight. Yeah. He died yesterday, and he had a fight over the weekend. And you should see it, BJ. You know, it was terrible, because the fighter had the other guy in the corner. He had just hit him, and the other guy got knocked down. In other words, he just knocked down the other guy. Yeah. Okay, so as the referee's counting the other guy to get up, and the other guy does get up, my man is on the other corner, because, you know, you have to go to the neutral corner whenever you knock somebody down. Yeah. My man is turned around, so he's facing the corner now. Usually, you know, what you do is you go to the neutral corner and you face the other box. Right. You watch the referee, you know, get him ready. And okay, then you go at him. This other fighter was turned around, looking at the corner, and he was throwing punches like he was fighting somebody. I knew right there his brain was shot. He's done. He's finished. And you should have seen the punches. They were slow. They were like, he thought he was fighting somebody. Wow. And the ambulance came right away. They knew immediately this guy was not, his head was shot. It was just broken. Yeah. And he didn't last one day. He's dead. His brain shot. My point is that we as humans have something called human will. Okay. And what that is we could do what we put our mind to. We have human will. Unfortunately, when you take on a pet, okay, and you're the owner of that pet, you can make the poor dog do what it wants, because A, you're smarter than it, and B, you're the source of its survival, its food, and everything it gets. Right. Okay, it's encouragement, it's love, it's food, everything. You're the world to that animal. Yeah. You are turning that animal around and turning it into a killing machine. Okay, and look what happened to the guy from South Africa. Okay, that happens every single day to all different types of animals, not just dogs, but to roosters and all other types of animals. So it's unfortunate. It's an evil. Okay, and this is why we address that evil in comics with a hero who does not just pat these people on the back or say, "Hey guys, that's a bad thing to do," and then fly away with his cape. That's going to happen, man. That's not going to happen. The Calico is called the Calico because he is a street dude who is black, white, and brown. Okay? Ethnically, he's black, white, and brown. Okay, like myself, I am black, white, and brown. Okay, gotcha. And the colors of the Calico are black, white, and brown. Okay, and that story hasn't been fully worked in, but there's a lot more to that story. That's why I'm free to tell it to you. And not be concerned about it, because there's a lot more texture to that story as it relates to the Calico. There's a lot more to it. Awesome. So, yep, that's a big deal.
Nice. So we've got issues 1 through 8. that we're working on right now. Like I said, we're kickstarting issue 5. Once the series wraps, we're going to get a volume 1 trade paperback, and then new stories.
New stories, man, and they're going to be from, right now we're focusing on New York City, and I can tell you, in volume 2, we're going to go everywhere. So it's going to be a mass deployment.
Nice. That's going to be dope.
Okay.
So let's see. C Rook is, I won't highlight your comment, C Rook, but yeah, animal abusers definitely can be gross and vile. It's definitely not. It's not cool. Like, abuse in general is not cool. But like child abuse, animal abuse, like, it's all abuse.
Right.
And it's kind of the same thing, right? Like, just even it's taking advantage of someone that can't fight back, that can't speak up for themselves, and it's just, that stuff is like the lowest of the low. There's a reason that we look at certain crimes the way we do, right? Someone takes advantage of a child, like, that's not okay. We've seen the most famous example of what happens with dog fighting, but there's a reason that there's such a serious penalty for things like that. But I'm going to take a second and just see if we've got any more questions. If you're watching the stream live, if you have any more questions for Double H, please put them in the chat, because I've gotten all my questions answered. I've had a great time.
Likewise, man. This is fun. I'm going to tell you 2 corollary things as the chat does its thing.
Okay.
One is that I mentioned before the free will. When I was fighting in my prime, in the 90s, which means that I was in my 20s. Okay. I was a boxer, an amateur boxer with an excellent record. Okay. And I knew something was happening back then. Okay. I was an early adopter of what we now call MMA, which at that time was called cage fighting. Okay. So I put myself into that because, unbeknownst to my trainer, because I knew that it was a very good thing in terms of the wave of popularity, and it was intense, which is what I like. Yeah. Okay. I don't like watered down things. At that time, listen, you think MMA is tough now? Oh no, my friend. Yeah. You don't even get me started. I was fighting dudes that were 6'5", 250 pounds, because back then we had no weight classes. Right. Okay? So we were fighting whatever. It was like Gladiator. If you ever see that movie Gladiator, the Russell Crowe movie, whatever came out that tunnel, that's what I was going to fight that night. And I was good. I was a good fighter, and I had some success. Unfortunately, I met a Russian fighter, Soviet fighter there, and he was incredible. He was a lot bigger and heavier. The fight wouldn't take place now. Right. Because we have weight classes and all sorts of things, rules, which you didn't have back then. Right. But the bottom line is I had a free will to do this. Now, imagine you're an innocent little dog that has just been, gotten from a shelter, an animal shelter, and you're just happy to be eating and loved and all this stuff. And now you're getting beat and you're getting put into a situation where in a few weeks you might even die. Listen, you are a despicable, person, man, to do something like that. This little animals just looking for love. All of us need love. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a pelican, an ant, a person. We need love, man. And that's intrinsic. Second corollary thing I'm going to tell you is, this is the indirect power of pop art. Okay, we talk about pop culture, and this is what this is. This comic book. Right. I want everybody to always remember this. Pop culture and pop art has a direct impact on what's called real culture. Real culture is a scientific term, social science. It means the active culture in your environment at the time. Okay. Right. I'm going to give you an example, several examples of how pop art, pop culture influence directly real culture. Okay. The Jeffersons, when that show came out. Okay. Yeah. Powerful impact. The Mary Tyler Moore Show, powerful. Will and Grace, extremely powerful. So this has been studied scientifically. Studies have been conducted on the impact that these shows have had on society. Okay, you might be an opposing viewpoint of a certain group. All of a sudden, a few years pass, you might even start every now and then catching a show or two. Your friends are all watching the show. Then you're at a bar, a few years later, and things just evolve and happen. Life changes, things happen, and the more of us who are creating pop art, pop culture to directly impact the cause, brother and sister, I say the more power to you. And this is our hat that we're throwing in. Here Comes Calico is our hat that we're throwing into the fray, into this fight, which is a very serious fight of fighting animal abuse. So again, I'll say this again. Every single person, not most of you or some of you, every single person that's listening to me right now, please go on Kickstarter.com, type in Here Comes Calico, or look at that link right there that BJ kindly put out, and back this thing, even at whatever level you want, because you know what? Every penny that you give is going to help us in this fight. And we really appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for supporting Sigma Comics.
Absolutely. Now we do have a couple of questions in the chat. Kevin Pitt says, doesn't know if it was asked, but do you have any plans on doing any Comic-Cons specifically in Michigan?
Okay, so yeah, we actually were going to be in the Motor City Comic-Con, but then somebody who was managing that was, I don't know if she was fired or she was let go, but we were scheduled to do it, but there was some kind of issue, and that happened about a month or two ago. The Detroit Comic-Con. I for this year, I think it's a wrap, but I do think for next year we'll be there. So absolutely.
Awesome. And it looks like this will be our last question of the night. But Tim says, Double H, I'm making a comic myself. Any key advice as a comic writer?
Excellent, Tim. Well, that's good for you, and congratulations on that. And all the luck, all the best to you on it. Any key advice? I would say, write what you know. I'm writing about fighting. Okay, BJ knows this because he's reading the comic book steadfast and religiously. The content that you're digesting as a reader of this comic book, you could tell right away that whoever's writing the story understands fighting. Okay.
Yeah.
And the mechanics, the psychology of fighting, extremely important. Know your thing. I don't know what you know, whether it's sports, or if it's racing, or crime, or whatever it is that you know really well. Know it well. And if you don't, go out and know it well. In my case, I know it firsthand on the street and in the boxing ring, and in the octagon. Okay. So I know fighting in 3 different arenas. Well, that's my power base. And I write to it wherever and whenever I can in the comics, because then it's legit and it's authoritative. Tim, be an authoritative writer so that when it's coming from your pen, it's authoritative. It actually means something. It's going to command an audience to be like, you know what, that dude knows what he's writing about.
Right. So, yeah, absolutely. If you can speak authoritatively about something, like, people take notice. Like, and, for me, I always just love speaking with people who are operating in their sphere, right? Like, I'm not a fighter. My dad used to do some amateur boxing, but that wasn't the route I decided to take, right? But I can listen to you, and I'm like, oh, yeah, he knows exactly what he's talking about. And it's exciting to listen to you talk about boxing, right? Nobody would want to hear me talk about boxing, So I think that's great advice. Thank you.
Right. It's an excellent point. It's very exciting to know something, because you feel like you gain that knowledge in a powerful way. There was I don't know if you were into video games, but when I was in the 80s and 90s, I love this video game called Mega Man. This guy, what he would do is he would go and beat up whatever the guy was on that level, and then he'd take his main power, and you should see it. He would adopt it as his another tool in his repertoire, and that's exactly what happens when you're a reader that's reading authoritative content. You assume it. That's a really good writer is able to pass on his or her power, that incredible power to the reader, and they feel empowered. Like, whoa, that's how it's done. It's like that eureka moment, and that's what you want to do as a writer. You really want to empower your reader to adopt and assume that power, because then they are inspired, and that's beautiful. Absolutely,
that is awesome.
Yeah.
So, well, look, Double H, thank you so much. Tim says thanks for that advice.
You got it.
Thank you for the advice, but also thanks for coming onto the show to share Here Comes Calico with us and with the audience. And like I said, thank you guys for, stopping by the channel when I was like a lot smaller. We're over 5,000 now, but we were not that way before. So I appreciate you and you guys just kind of, taking that leap of faith on me, and then, allowing me to help amplify the message a little bit.
Well, listen, congratulations, BJ, on the success of the show. We have seen you grow, and we have seen you learn and receive and give. And that's exactly what this is it's a knowledgeable giving and receiving of great comic book information and fun. And that's what your show is. It's great fun. And I really appreciate you having us on. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. Thank you. Kevin says, great interview. HH is a good guy. Seen him before on another show. So he's following you around, man.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I appreciate you. And listen, it's people like you and BJ and all the other people in the audience that are passionate about something that we all love, and that's comic books, man. Comic books are inspirational, and it's a beautiful thing when you can be alone with something that is inspirational.
Right.
And that's what comic books are. They're inspirational. They allow you to be entertained, but also go out and embrace the world in a totally different light. And in our case, also do a positive thing in the world. So thank you so much for your support.
Absolutely. So look, that's going to do it for us. Thank you guys so much for coming to hang out with me. Next week on the Hangout, this same time next week, Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, I'm talking to Kyron Silva. He's got his own Kickstarter. He's got his own universe of characters he's bringing to the forefront. So we're going to talk about everything he's got going on. So that's going to be fun. But before we get out of here, I have to give another huge shout out to our channel sponsor, and that is Organic Priced Books. Organic Priced Books, again, the best place to go online for collected editions. Static Season 1 came out this week. I just did an overview of it. You can grab that at Organic Priced Books for just $18 if you use the coupon code BJKicks at checkout. But like I said, that's going to do it for me. I hope you saw something you liked in the stream. Do not forget to back Here Comes Calico #5. That way, and like I said, back only $20 gets you all 5 issues. So go ahead and back the campaign, or if you're feeling super cool, then back it at the $40 level. Get 2 copies and share one with a friend. But yeah, that's going to do it for us. I want to say thank you again to Double H for coming on and sharing with us. And thank you guys for watching. Hope you saw something you liked in this video. And if not, that's cool. Because I always say, you can always buy what you like. Just make sure you read what you buy. And be nice to others, because kindness makes the world go round. See you guys.